My name's Charles Green. I'm part of the marketing team here at Belatrix Software, and I'm going to be your host today. Thank you firstly all for taking the time out of your busy schedules to join this call. Today's actually a special event because it's actually a joint webinar together with Intellignos, which is a company which is really deep in the trenches of helping companies with their big data challenges. And so we're absolutely delighted today to be joined by the Chief Executive of Intellignos, Juan Damia. Juan, just to start off, can you perhaps say a few words about yourself and also how your organization helps companies with their data challenges?
Hello, everyone, and thanks so much to Belatrix for inviting me. I'm so excited about being here talking about this interesting topic. Well, I'm Juan Damia. I'm as Charles mentioned, I'm the CEO and founder of Intellignos and also co-founder of Social Metrics. In 2010, Endeavor awarded me as with the Global Emerging Entrepreneur of the Year, and also I wrote a book called Meta Analytics, a blog Meta Analytics, and I'm trying to help some companies in the mainly startups through different organizations like Endeavor and Launchpad from the University of Miami and Venture Hive and Wider, which is the business accelerator from Telefonica Group. So Intellignos is a company that is 100% dedicated to analytics and research, and not just digital analytics. It's analytics in general.
Yep. Yeah, excellent, thank you. But anyhow, before we get into the meat of the presentation, I do want to say right at the very start of this webinar that today's session is going to be very open. While we do have the presentation prepared, we will be absolutely delighted to take questions at any time. So please feel either to write them into the web conference or via Twitter, where we'll be tweeting using the hashtag Belatrix Analytics. For those of you not familiar then with Belatrix, we're a leading provider of software product development services and also mobile application development as well. Our focus is really on innovation and really shaping the concepts and ideas of our clients into world-class software products. So we're absolutely very interested in big data, understanding what it means to organizations, and that's why we decided to collaborate with Juan Damia on this webinar to understand a bit more about it. So we have a relatively straightforward agenda for today. The agenda, we're going to start off by talking about big data, what exactly it is, what is the challenge that organizations face with big data. We're then going to talk about meta-analytics, perhaps a phrase that many of you are not perhaps so familiar with, but something which is very much core to what Intellignos are, the services which they offer and the approach that they take to big data. Then we're going to talk about the importance of an analytics governance department, and then we're going to talk about what is the role of a CTO and a CIO in this transformation, as this really is a transformation for organizations to go through. We're then going to look at a couple of case studies, and of course we're going to have time for Q&A at the end. But as mentioned before, we do have time for Q&A throughout. We'll have time to take your questions at any point during the call. So please feel free to type into the chat and also via Twitter as well. So without further ado, Juan, so we've all heard the term big data. But I want to start off the presentation by asking you, what does this really mean for organizations? What is big data, and what does it mean with respect to some of the challenges that presents to organizations today?
Well, let's start talking about the challenges. And we all listen a lot about big data, and it's probably one of the most mentioned terms these days in the internet arena. And the thing is that, just to mention some studies, one study from Gartner mentioned that for this year, 2015, analytics and business intelligence are the main topic for CIOs and CDOs, and not just for them. I mean, because all the companies demanding these kind of activities to them. The other interesting report is one from IBM, the CMO's report, in which they mentioned that more than 80% of the CMOs from the from more than 2,000 companies, they mentioned that they are almost drowning in data. I mean, they are having a lot of problems trying to make decisions over that quantity of information. Also, if you see the growth of the data in the internet, it's from if you compare 2013 with 2020, in just 7 years, the information will be multiplied per 10 times, and that means all the information is being generated in in the same environment. And it has to be consumed for making decisions. I mean, it's not like people is generating more information than before. It's that everything that is happening today in our life is being tracked. All our photos, all our conversations, or part of our conversation, the social interactions, everything is being tracked, is being saved in a server, and that is what And if you go to the definition of big data is a problem. It's not a a platform or a software or a practice. Big data is a problem. We will see some definitions in some slide later. Another interesting report. Yeah.
So yeah, I was going to say, sorry to interrupt you there, but it's getting, I think absolutely you're right that this explosion in data, it presents a huge amount of opportunity to organizations, but it's really, it's overwhelming organizations at the moment. I think it also very closely related to things such as the Internet of Things, where you see almost every device now starting to be connected to the internet, and every device now actually starting to to generate data, which can potentially have value, but of course it's trying to find that value in all that data. Sorry, Juan, I think you were going to go on to talk about data and trying to get value from all that data.
Yeah, exactly. And the most here in this slide, we can see the problems we are facing, or the companies are facing these days. Data is growing a lot, but the professionals that can understand that data are not. And this is not solved just because just by hiring people. It's not that easy. It's not like most of the companies are trying to solve the problem just hiring data analysts or data scientists. We will talk a little bit about this in the next slide. So first of all, let's define analytics. Probably this day everybody knows what analytics is. Some years in 2005 or 6, probably all the people was probably when you mention analytics, they think that you were talking about Google Analytics. Today, I guess that problem is solved, and everybody knows that it's not analytics. We are talking about practices. Analytics are the practices that takes statistic and operative market research and take that that's platforms in order to help making generating insights in a big volume of data. So it's not like just or digital or non-digital. It's basically what analytics is it's like a machine for generating insights. That's what it is, and it helps generating insights in a big volume of data. And the big volume of data, the big data, is the problem. It's not the solution. This solution is basically made by analytics, which is basically the insight machine. Business intelligence is the big thing. So we are inside business intelligence. And also, if you think about, in some cases, probably people confuse those terms like they are competing each other, right? Like, what's better, big data or analytics? And so that's why it's very important to explain which position takes one of each concept. And also, data mining is another concept that I wanted to talk about. Is are the practices that are used by analytics to simplify the way you process the information for identifying those insights. Is that clear, Charles?
Absolutely, and I think it's very important to separate out these concepts between what is big data, what is analytics. I mean, I've often thought about it. Analytics is really it's the transformation of that data into specific insights or useful insights that's going to help people make decisions that they need to in their everyday lives. So that's another way of perhaps thinking about that. But I want to then move on because, Juan Damia, you're well known and you've written a lot about a different concept. We're very closely related to that, but a concept that you're calling meta-analytics. So what is meta-analytics and how does that perhaps differ from some of the usual concepts that we're perhaps more familiar with?
Okay, well, meta-analytics, basically, which means beyond analytics, includes into analytics arena two key concepts, at least concepts that we think are very important when you are working in trying to generate those insights. The first one is the analyze object, which is the company, and the companies are systems. And if we define systems, systems are a set of components, objects that are interact together with a common objective, right? And the common objective can be, separated into two different objectives or sub-objectives. One is generating money today, which is could be like revenue or EBITDA, and making money tomorrow, which is, in my opinion, is just purchase and intention. Some people talk about engagement and other kind of metrics like brand awareness, but I think the only value we can get, we can say we are generating value to a company is if we are generating more interest in people to purchase in our products. You can have a brand that everybody knows, but nobody buys the products, and that is not a value, but we can discuss that later. So the first is the object, which is the companies that are systems. It's very important we understand that those components, the people, computers, web pages, advertising campaigns, everything works together in order to reach that objective, which is making money. It's not like just being well known. It's really making money. And the other key concept in meta-analytics is who analyzes the information, and here is the human. And the human, is one of the most important thing when you think about analyzing, because first of all what you're going to analyze is based on an interaction generated by the person, and the person, even when you think that that people we can generate logic processes of reasoning, the truth is that the human behaves in an erratic way. So if we think that we can really understand how people perform or behave, that is not correct, because even yourself, probably you can behave in a particular way today and tomorrow in a different way. Also, it's important to think that we are dealing with humans, because when you are analyzing something, it's something totally different to reporting something. So processing information is totally different to reporting information. If you report information, you're reporting to someone else. And it's really important that other person understand what you're saying. And you can not imagine all the problems that are generated based on misunderstanding from people, that are working together even when they have the same language. I mean, in other cases, we have problems because of the cultures, the language, and everything. But even when they're talking, the very same language, just the different mental model from the people confuses everything, and that can drive to an incorrect decision making. Can I go to the next question, Charles?
Yep, sure. I mean, I think maybe just to perhaps just to summarize, sort of understand exactly what you're saying there. So really, the meta-analytics, you're saying that there are really two concepts, that you've got, the systems plus you've got the people, and it's a different question then, away from being a pure technology question, which I think many companies, many people still think of big data as a a technological challenge. And what you're saying, meta-analytics, is actually is a very different kind of challenge.
Yeah, correct. So I mean, just the technology side is difficult, right? I mean, we're talking about processing terabytes of data every day, but it's not, that is the small problem. The biggest problem is generated by people, and we are going to explain a little bit more about that in the next slides. The next question says, what does meta-analytics mean for companies? And companies are systems, right, composed by people. If you leave those two variables aside, you will have, all the problems we have today with the data. That's why 80% of the CMOs are saying that they are drowning in data, because it's not a problem of having the skills. It's not a problem of knowing about math or technology. I mean, math and statistics and technology is something that is something that is working properly. I mean, if you want to program something, I mean, it's logic. You cannot confuse in that. If you want to know how I don't know how it works, and it's very simple. You can just read the help. The problem is not there. The problem is that you are the people that are taking that information, processing, and making decision is people that behave in an erratic way, and that's why it's so important that people that is responsible for data in the companies have a meta-analytics approach. It's not just, we are not just like machines. We're not beings that we work in a very same way every day. We work in it depends on the day, in our humor, in our our mood, we behave in a different way. And the things that every person has a very particular mental model. But when you go to a company, means you have to add the mental model of each particular person, and also the culture of the company that changes everything. That's why, in my opinion, understanding the company culture and the company structure is one of the key concepts, or the key knowledge you have to have when you are thinking about designing an information system, or as we are going to talk in the next slides, if you want to develop an analytics governance department.
Yeah, excellent. Well, before we get to that, I noticed we have a couple of questions from the audience that I think maybe it's a good point just to pause and to take some of these questions. And the first one is, how can we discover something interesting for us in all this big data without knowing exactly what we're looking for? Do we have any opinion on that? I'll let you reply to that, Juan Damia, but I think what you're trying to get at here is that it's about by taking this meta-analytic approach, taking a broader perspective on the data, on the individuals who are doing the analysis, and that's really where you're going to find the insights. But perhaps I'll let you respond to that as well.
Yeah. It's a very interesting question. In my opinion, the first thing we have to have is questions. I mean, today we have all the data we need for having the answers. The problem is having the correct questions, and that's the key. That's why, in my opinion, I would never sit in front of an analytics platform or a platform that can retrieve some information if before I don't have a very specific question. Otherwise, the problem you will have is you're going to be there, working. It's very entertaining, being in an analytics platform and digging information. But the truth is, you're going to be there like for 4 hours or so, and you will not have an answer, because that's the being drowning in data is the result of going to an analytics platform without a question.
Absolutely, and I think maybe also it's also about trying to use the data that you need to make smarter decisions faster. It's no longer relying on a huge amount of data. It's no longer trying to cover everything, but it's really about trying to find out what is really relevant in that particular situation. And kind of moving on then from that, one of the key ideas that you propose in this meta-analytics approach is an analytics governance department. So perhaps you can talk a little bit about that and explain exactly what you mean by an analytics governance.
Yeah, I think analytics governance is really the answer of the problem we are facing today, mainly because normally, if you think about the companies as a system, and each department is like part of that system interacting together with a common objective. Let's say, I don't know, marketing. The marketing department is responsible for generating demand, right? And sales is getting that demand and convert that into sales. And finance, they have to make that those sales generate benefits to the company. So all those departments are responsible for the bottom line of the company, for the revenues of the company. And if you think about that, every department has a specific like goal. It's not an objective, but a goal. And so every area has a particular goal, but they cannot see the company as an entire thing, as a whole, the whole thing. That's why they normally have objectives or goals that probably can improve the performance of the particular department, but they are not helping the company to achieve the company objective, which is the most important thing. That's why, let's say, in some cases we have social media or marketing departments working in generating more followers in Facebook, and the thing is they are generating a good result for the department, more followers in Facebook, but that is not translated into benefits for the company unless you can pay your salaries in followers, which I don't think that's possible. Or none of your employees wanted to get the salary in followers. So if that's not the case, the most important thing is that you really behave in a way that you bring the company closer to their main objective. And the only way to do that is having the vision of the entire company. But to do so, the only way to do so is being outside of the company. That's why analytics governance is so important. Let's talk a little bit about the definition. Analytics governance centralizes the generation of findings based on the objectivity of the information within organizational structures in a specific area or department that works out of the productive structure of the organization. Let me see. Charles, for some reason the presentation closes. Is there again?
No, I think it's still working. Yes.
Okay, perfect. So let's talk a little bit about this definition. I said, first of all, I mentioned centralization of findings. This is a very interesting thing because today nobody is really responsible, or everybody is responsible for the findings. And if everybody is responsible, nobody is responsible. So the point is, who is responsible for facilitate the insights in all the company? How can help the marketing department to understand how their activities are helping the entire company improve their results? Because they can't see just their department. So it has to be like someone that is responsible for that. So if someone in the company don't have the answers they're requiring, is responsible for that. So that department can be an operations department. The analytic governance department is not a department that is producing things. It's a department that design the things, that planify the things, that develop the processes in order to get the follow results. But it's not possible that the same area is producing things and also planning those things, because at some point when you have an operating department or area that also planifies what they are operating, at some point they will just become operators and they forget about the vision and the strategy and everything. That's why it's very important that it is a specific area that centralizes that responsibility.
And absolutely, I think also related to that, as big data, data becomes much more important to people, and as more and more business users touch, use, and rely on data, then of course there's greater emphasis being placed on the governance of the underlying data. Is that data reliable? And this is of course one way of doing that.
Yeah.
Also, there are other concepts behind that. I think also the objectivity of the information.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, today most of the companies, they have like departments that operates the information. It could be the BI department, business intelligence department. In some cases, the technology department is responsible for generating the information. But in all the cases, it's just one department producing information from the director to the rest of the company, but it is not organized. So today, if you ask for information in an average company, you will get the answer probably in a month, in 2 months, or probably never. They won't be able to answer your requirements of information. That is normally drives people to not using information for making decisions. Instead, they use their own experience in most of the cases. A little information with experience, and that is really a problem because you're not generating like decision-making scenario with an acceptable level of risk and everything. We're just making decisions based on your past experience that probably is not even useful because everything changes. Systems are alive. Your company is alive. It's changing all the time. So even when you are facing a problem that seems to be the same problem you faced in the past, the cause probably is totally different. So we can never be sure that we are facing the same problem that we faced in the past. That's why you cannot make decisions based on that experience. That is why it's really important that information brings objectivity to the decision making. It's not what I think or what you think. It's an objective. It's based on the reality, or at least of the what information says that the reality is, and that brings a lot of problems when you are discussing your based on your experience, because the discussions are not based on information or ideas. You are discussing people. You are discussing about yourself. If someone tells you, "I'm not agree with your idea," is "I'm not agree with you," and that's a big problem, right?
Absolutely. I think it's also that there's often that trade-off, right, between getting the information, the data into people's hands so that they can then use that data to make that decision. But of course, as you mentioned, you want to make sure that that data is reliable, that it's objective, that it's useful. And so it's often, how fast can you do that? Often one of the challenges with business intelligence systems were that people, were relying on reports which were years or months old. And it's a question of how relevant is that information today. Of course, now you're trying to get it much more real-time, much more relevant data. Also, I believe...
yeah, correct. Actually...
Sorry, go ahead.
Actually, we see every day problem based on not using information for making decisions or discussing, project or ideas. It's something that goes against the data-driven culture. The best thing we can do in order to develop a data-driven culture, we don't have to forget that most of the companies that that we know today, the well-known companies today, were in a time where the information was very scarce. So they normally use the information normally to validate maybe a decision that was made in the past. I mean, I already made a decision. I need information to support the decision that I already made. But today we can really base the decisions on information. But the problem is that we have to change our culture. We have to change the way we were working for the past like 20 or 30 years. And that's, I think, the biggest challenge. It's not like just getting the right people. I mean, that is not a big problem. I mean, you know, people that know about statistics or technology, the biggest problem is that companies have to change their culture. They have to introduce the data-driven, the data-driven into their culture. They have to change the culture in order to not make opinions, but base the decisions, their decisions on information, and stop doing inferences all the time that are very risky, right?
Mm-hmm. And actually, Juan, we just have a question from the audience related directly to that. And you know, what advice or suggestions do you have for changing that culture? What would be kind of your top steps for creating that data-driven culture?
Well, I guess a good idea to change the culture is implementing an analytics governance department, because they are not into the company. They are part of the technical structure. They are like a department that is not inside the operational structure. So they can be like the backbone that helps the company change the culture. They are not in the culture; they are outside the culture. We can say that way, and they accompany the rest of the company into changing the culture, right? It's like I've been told last week. I've been told about the research that someone made, in which there were like 30 people in a particular room, and someone from the outside enters this room, and like in 2 or 3 minutes, a bell rings, and all the people stand up, and then the bell rings again, and everybody sit down, and the second time they do the same thing, the new one, stays sit, right? But then at the third time, this person started also standing up, sitting, standing, sitting, and so one person was getting out of the room, and a new person getting in the room. At the end of the study, all the persons in the room were new, but they were all these people were like standing up and sitting down every time the bell rings or ranks, right? So what I want to tell you with this is, if you want to change a culture, you have to have like a backbone, right? Something that every time a person is going in the wrong way, the rest of the company have to accompany this person. But at the beginning, nobody behaves that way, behaves in a different way. They do inferences. They say things like the clients prefer, lower prices, things like that are not based on information. The client prefer this, or people prefer that, things that are not based on information at all. So at the beginning, you need a person that is all the time, correcting those deviations, right? And it has to be like for 1 year, not less than that. For 1 year, a group of people working with the different areas. And at the beginning, when a company implements an analytics governance department, you need to have someone that accompanies the analytics governance department, because they are all new, and they also need someone that work with them in changing the first of all, in generating the culture in the analytics governance department, and then helping the rest of the company doing so.
Mm-hmm. Okay, excellent. And I think that's actually a very good segue into some of the other key points which you highlight within meta-analytics. In the next slide, we talk about the importance of organizational structures.
Yeah, I already mentioned that it is really important that that if you are generating an analytics department, or also if you are just developing or designing an information system, it's very important that you understand what you're measuring. We don't have to forget that an information system is based on another system that is the company. The company is the company organization structure is a system, and you cannot just develop an information system based on the parts. Like, let's say you cannot just develop an information system um, uh, going to the marketing department and like an isolated department, and then to the financial department and an installation department, because it has to be a relationship between all indicators and the main objective of the company. It has to be someone that like pushes every department to do just the things that brings the company closer to the main objective, getting money. Otherwise, we will have like indicators in the marketing department that just measures like followers or engagement as a good thing. And I mean, it's not, unless you can really prove that those indicators are really impacting and really generating business results. Otherwise, they're not good indicators. That's why it's really important at the beginning. Just like you have to develop a report that is based on a organizational chart based on layers. So the best layer is the organizational chart with every department and the name of the people and everything. And the second slide is the objective of each department. And the third is who are they reporting, where is reporting each area to. And the fourth layer is how are they being measured, how their performance is being measured. So all those layers makes are like the base for building over all that information, the information system that will make sense for a particular company.
Mm-hmm. And of course, I think closely one of the challenges many organizations face related to that is that there's still very much silos within different departments or different areas. So marketing still perhaps is very separate from what they don't really understand what the data that the R&D department has or what the sales department has, or they may want to find some weblog data, for example, but how do they have to go and collect that manually? So of course it's clearly a very big challenge for many organizations that how do you overcome many of these silos?
Correct. Yeah, I think this is one of the most difficult things to understand, that we are not, like isolated areas in the company. That's the most complicated thing. Um, it's like in most of the cases, if you see, the companies in intelligence, we work with Fortune 500 companies, which normally are like 1,000 employees, and it's very difficult to each employee to understand that they're just by pushing, or performing a very, very simple task, they can impact in the bottom line of the company. It's very hard. That's why it's very important to build an information system that is, the information system has to be responsible to be like overwhelming in telling people what they have to do and they don't have to do. The resources are always scarce. So what the information has to do is being overwhelming, telling this is what you have to do and this is what you don't have to do. And in most of the cases, people perform activities that are not bringing the company closer to their objective, but not because they're bad people or they are not effective, just because they don't have the right indicators that allow them understand how they can perform their task in a better way. Analytics is not just about improving the ROI. We can have a great ROI. The marketing department has can implement great, marketing campaigns or AdWords campaign or SEM campaigns and having a great ROI. But at the end of the day, they also have a different cost associated on that. So you can lose money even when you have a great ROI in marketing department, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think now this is an interesting point. I know on the line today we have many CIOs and CTOs who have joined us today. So I want to move then on in this presentation to now discuss very specifically what role does the CTO or the CIO have in this transformation?
That's a great question, and because normally when we talk about a CEO or a CIO, most of the people think about someone that is a tech guy, speaks in a weird way and talks about software and hardware and everything. But that is not like it's not that way. Actually, the CTOs and CIOs are key players in this transformation. Today's company cannot become data-driven if they don't have a CTO or CIO that is aligned on that objective, because they're the only one that can put the information at the service of the people. So the CTO and CIO are not anymore tech guys. They have to understand that they are business guys. They're business guys that use technology to facilitate the comprehension of the information to improve the decision making through across all the company. So in some cases, probably some CDOs and CIOs are not very they're not very focused on the business, because nobody told them that they have to be focused on the business. We don't have to forget that the C-level of the company, they are the guardians of the revenues. They are the guardians of the bottom line of the company. So the CDO, the CIO, the CMO, and the CFO, all those profiles in the company are responsible for making the company earn money. So it's not like just if I implement a better platform, that means that we are gonna have a better results. I mean, we can probably spend a lot of money in a better platform, but at the end of the day, that was not our problem. So we are spending money but not bringing more money to the table, and that is a problem, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. We have I know we're going to move on now to talk a little bit about some case studies, but before we have one question on Twitter, which is perhaps a slightly definitely a slightly challenging question. But the question is, algorithm-wise, what are the most effective tactics for tackling big data problems? Sorry, a bit of a tongue twister there.
That's a great question. I think that what I would do in every case is, first of all, is, as I told you, designing the organizational structure in layers, as I said before. After that, designing all the information system, and at the end of the day, just then go and find what are the platform that can fit our needs. But when I say fit our needs, it's not just because are the better platform, but we have to think also what are the possible platforms, right? So it's not just trying to do like an incredible project, the perfect project that we have to invest $1 million in 5 years. In some cases, that is not possible. So it's not even a possibility. It's not even in the in my decision-making scenario. So what I normally do is try to separate, to disaggregate all the decisions I have to make into variables. Let's say I have to implement a data warehouse, or I have to implement, for instance, should I save all the information in my own servers, or should I outsource that? All the decisions are, a set of variables that has to be answered before you move forward into making any decision that way. Normally, my recommendation is you spend like 80% of your time on the planning, on generate that decision-making scenario, and 20% of the time will be enough for the implementation.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. So moving on then, I now want to give a couple of practical examples to meta-analytics and what it means for companies. So let's go to the first case example, which is in the entertainment industry.
Well, we're going to talk about an X brand, okay? We cannot mention a specific brand, but it's a company from the entertainment industry. It's a big company, Fortune 500 company. And in this case, they already had a BI department, a big BI department that were managing most of the platform. They had a lot of information, different platforms, tons of information for everyone. But the problem was that in most of the cases, all the information was being replied every time. So the information was not available for everyone. It was like every person was asking to this department for a specific report, and they receive as a result they receive a specific report. In some cases, an automatic report that was being like updated every month or every week or wherever else. And in other cases, it was just like a fixed report, like from a particular date. But the problem with that was that this area was working a lot in generating reports that in most of the cases were the same thing. Let's say a person that was working like 5 meters from the other person was asking for the very same report that the other person asked in the previous month. So the rework was so all these people was working in the same things all the time. The other problem was that in most of the cases the information was isolated. Nobody was sharing the information, and the problem with that is that the behavioral information makes no sense by itself. Behavioral information, like let's say page views or purchases or quantity of a view in a video, that is behavioral information. The behavioral information just tells you what people are doing, not why they are behaving in that way. So it is like useless by itself. That's why it's very important that other people in the company shares their schedules, their personal information about what they are working. Let's say if I see that there is a spike in traffic in my website, and nobody tells me that it was a problem with a particular product or with a particular content, let's say a television show, someone says something wrong or something polemic, then everyone will be visiting the website of the company, but not looking for consuming our content, but instead to criticize the content. That is not good. But if I just see the traffic, that will say that we are better because we have more traffic than before. That's why it's very important that everyone in the company shares everything what they're doing, because like they have to write like share notes. So when everyone is analyzing like let's say behavioral information, that makes more sense. And in this case, what we did is implement an information system, but not just that, but also an analytics governance department that was the responsible of understanding what each part of the company was requiring for making decisions. And in that case, at the beginning, the VI department was not very comfortable within another area that was like competing with them. But at the end of the day, they find out that the analytics governance department was an area helping a lot the BI department because they were, the quantity of work reduces a lot and was more strategic than just, generating report all the time, the same report all the time.
Okay, fascinating. And I believe you also have a second case study in the e-commerce sector.
Mm-hmm. Well, normally, every person can think that, companies that are, big companies in the e-commerce arena are, very smart regarding the data. But the truth is that, of course, they are very smart, but they have, biggest problems because everyone is, making decisions almost in real time to improve their offer and to drive people from from a visit to a purchase. So you only have like one chance to drive the person from a visit to purchase or from a purchase to repurchase, right? And in this case, this company had a lot of information, but it was a lot of information. So what they were unable to consume it in real time. So this problem was driving them to make decisions not based on information but on their own experience. And the results were not very positive, right? Because they were making decisions that require a lot of investment towards a particular objective, but when they achieve that change, the results in the business results were not good. So they probably lose 2 months in generating that result, or to understanding what the problem is and everything. So in this case, what we did is implement also analytical governance area, but the first was not like changing all the culture of the company, because we need results in a very short time. So in this case, what we did was first of all not focus on all the company, but just in the digital marketing department. And we started implementing platforms that solve a very particular thing, is having real-time information about different type of information. I mean, as we said, behavioral information is just one part of the problem. I mean, it's what the users are doing, but it's not enough. So we also implemented a feedback platform. So that brought us attitudinal information, what tells us why the users are behaving in a particular way. So we have the what, the why, and the third source of information was server performance platform, because in some cases conversions were not succeeding because the platform is not performing in the right way. In some cases, the big problem is that people think that just because they know that the average time of load for a particular page was, I don't know, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, or something like that. But in some cases, the average time is useless because in some cases the page probably load in 1 second. Another case could be 5, 7, 8 seconds, and that's the conversions are not also an average. The people that is waiting there for like 7, 8 seconds, they leave. So the average in the performance is not like transferred into an average into of conversion. That's why in this particular case we focus on generating like decision-making scenarios that covers everything. And the fourth source of information was UX and UX analytics platform, in order to understand why, how the user were navigating the website, and why they in some cases, first of all, trying to identify where was the bottleneck in the conversion, because as we said, companies are systems, and in every systems you have like one main bottleneck. So it's not necessary that you improve all the company. If your e-commerce website is not converting in a proper way, you don't have to change the website, the product, the prices, and everything. The problem is mainly one. So you have to identify what's the main problem and change just that specific problem. That's why we attack the problem, bringing to the table a lot of information sources that uh, allow us to have like a full or in-depth understanding of the total company, of the company as a whole, then understand where is the main bottleneck, and and then invest in the scarce resources just in improving that. It's like every company is like a pipeline that has a main restriction that pipeline has a main restriction. So even when you improve all the pipeline, you make it bigger in all the parts of the pipeline, you don't have a better result. You only will achieve a better result or immediate result if you improve just the restriction, the bottleneck. So in that case, we with this process, was very easy to understand the bottleneck in each stage of the company. So instead of changing everything, improving the advertising, the website, the performance, and everything, it was very easy. In every time we want to accelerate the sales, understand where was the problem and how to accelerate that, the throughput, the flow of money into the company. The result was, outstanding. We got lift of like 20% from in each cycle. 20% is, in a company that was selling a lot, it was a lot of money. Yeah.
Okay, fascinating. I think it's particularly interesting how you really took them from one side, when going back to that first slide you presented, that companies are drowning in data, and then how they got through that and came out the other side to getting some very strong results. I am aware that we are nearly at the top of the hour. We've got a couple more minutes left for the presentation today. That actually brings us to the end of the material we wanted to present to you. We do have time, a couple of minutes for questions if you do have anything you would like to ask. If not, we are more than happy to take questions after the call. If if this has sparked any interest or any questions which come to you following this call, then please do feel free to reach out to us. You can see our emails there. But at the moment, we don't have any additional questions. I know we've been taking questions throughout the call so far, but we don't have any additional questions at this time. Juan, do you have any final thoughts, any final comments from your side that you'd like to leave the audience with?
First of all, I want to thank you for inviting me to talk about this. I think we have a huge opportunity in the market today. If we really understand, the base of the problem, we will be able to improve it. Today, most of the companies are not taking advantage of the information. That's the truth. Even when everyone is talking about case studies and everything, the truth is that it is still a huge opportunity for improving the business result based on information. In some cases, we were able to improve the company situation just working on the data in their databases, just improving the way they send emails. So we are talking about big data and big problems, but in some cases, it's just being smarter in the way you in your approach to the information you already have. You can make a lot of money based just if you're smart in the use of your current information. So in some cases, since I'm a mentor in some startups, I see that when startups really understand the importance of the information and they stop like doing inferences about about a lot of things about the decisions they made. They take that advantage they take the advantage of the information in an easier way, because in a big company you have to change the culture, but in a startup you don't have to change the culture. It's like there is no culture to change. They are just building their own culture, and in that case they really take advantage of the information, and you see how they fight. Uh, they are able to fight against bigger company, about like talking about like a startup against like a Fortune 500 company, and in some cases they take a lot of market of the big companies, just because they are using the information in the right way. And the information is today we can easily see that information is not something that just big companies can acquire like in the past. 20 years ago or 30 years ago, getting the information was one of the most expensive things for companies. That's why normally small and medium-sized companies were not able to invest in information. But today, everyone can invest in information, can have information. In some cases, free information. In some others, pretty inexpensive information. But the impact that generates, using the information towards the bottom line of the company is huge. And my recommendation is, like, even if you are a big company, or you are the CTO or CIO of a small company, it's really worth changing. Taking the risk of changing your culture to a data-driven culture.
Okay, thank you, Juan. And with that, we are really right at the very top of the hour, so I would like to say thank you, everyone, for taking the time to participate today. I hope it's been interesting. I hope it's been insightful. If you have any follow-up questions, feel free to contact us. And with that, I would like to say thank you and goodbye.
Bye. Thank you very much. Have a great day.